The United States and China have long been deeply intertwined as economic partners, with their trade relationship shaping the global economy for decades. Both nations have benefited from this partnership, but beneath the surface, competition and suspicion have always simmered. Despite years of cooperation, their relationship has always been fraught with tension, marked by disputes over trade practices, intellectual property, and market access. The recent trade war erupted during President Trump's first term, as he argued that America's massive trade deficit with China was costing U.S. jobs and undermining the country's manufacturing base. Many Americans felt that China's rapid economic rise came at their expense. To address these concerns, Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese imports, aiming to make American goods more competitive and to pressure China into changing its trade policies. China quickly retaliated with its own tariffs, especially targeting U.S. agriculture, including soybeans and pork, sparking a cycle of escalation that affected industries on both sides of the Pacific. The conflict only intensified after Trump's return to office, with new tariffs raising the average rate on Chinese goods to a staggering 57%. This marked one of the most aggressive trade stances in modern history. The threat of a 100% tariff on all Chinese imports loomed large, sending shockwaves through global markets and raising fears of a worldwide economic downturn. Both nations faced mounting pressure. U.S. farmers lost key export markets, businesses struggled with higher costs, and rural communities felt the sting of lost income and uncertainty. Meanwhile, Chinese factories saw reduced orders, leading to layoffs and slowing production, as global supply chains were thrown into disarray. The trade war soon became about more than just economics. It evolved into a battle for global influence, technological supremacy, and the future of international trade rules. The world watched anxiously, as investors, governments, and ordinary people hoped the two superpowers would avoid a catastrophic economic conflict that could reshape the world order. The prolonged standoff left businesses and consumers worldwide in a state of uncertainty, with rising prices, disrupted supply chains, and unpredictable markets becoming the new normal. American companies reliant on Chinese parts faced higher prices and difficult decisions about whether to pass those costs on to consumers or absorb them. At the same time, Chinese manufacturers worried about the stability of their export markets and the long-term impact on their workforce. The trade war's impact rippled through global markets, threatening decades of economic integration and cooperation that had lifted millions out of poverty. Ultimately, the world awaited a breakthrough, hoping that renewed negotiations and diplomatic efforts could halt the escalation and restore some measure of stability to the global economy. With so much at stake, the stage was set for a high-stakes diplomatic showdown that would determine the future of global trade and the balance of power for years to come. With tensions at a breaking point, all eyes turned to Busan, South Korea, a city suddenly thrust into the global spotlight. The world's media descended on its bustling streets, capturing the anticipation and anxiety that filled the air. Here, President Trump and President Xi Jinping met for a critical summit, their first direct encounter since Trump's dramatic return to the world stage. The stakes could not have been higher. Global markets were on edge, with investors and governments alike watching for any sign of progress or collapse. The global economy hung in the balance, and the outcome of this meeting would ripple across continents. The summit's goal was clear: find a way to de-escalate and prevent a full-blown trade war that could devastate economies and livelihoods worldwide. Both leaders arrived under intense domestic and international pressure, aware that failure could mean disaster for millions. Trump needed to appear tough yet pragmatic. His supporters demanded strength, but the business community wanted compromise. Xi, meanwhile, needed to project unwavering strength while also ensuring China's economic stability and growth. The talks were wide-ranging, focusing on tariffs, tech restrictions, rare earth minerals, and the growing fentanyl crisis. Each issue carried enormous weight, with real consequences for people and industries on both sides of the Pacific. Rather than solving every issue, the aim was a temporary truce, a pause to cool tensions and rebuild trust, giving both sides space to negotiate further. The breakthrough came in the form of a one-year trade truce, with both sides agreeing to key compromises and promising to keep talking. No formal treaty was signed, but the agreement paused the most damaging measures and opened a window for further negotiation, offering hope that a more lasting peace could be achieved. the world breathed a collective sigh of relief as the threat of a 100% tariff was lifted, and factories and businesses began to recover from months of uncertainty. A fragile new chapter in U.S.-China relations had begun, with the world watching closely to see if this uneasy peace would hold. The Busan Agreement's first major outcome was a targeted U.S. tariff reduction, a move that surprised many observers who had expected a more sweeping or confrontational approach. Instead, negotiators opted for a carefully calibrated gesture, signaling a willingness to engage without giving up leverage. Instead of a broad rollback, the U.S. halved tariffs on Chinese goods related to fentanyl and its precursors, from 20% to 10%. This targeted reduction focused on a specific set of products, directly addressing a critical issue that had strained relations between the two countries. This move, effective immediately, was both symbolic and strategic, linking tariff relief to action on the opioid crisis. It sent a clear message that economic incentives could be tied to progress on urgent public health challenges, creating a new model for cooperation. The average U.S. tariff on Chinese imports dropped from 57% to about 47%, still high, but a notable shift. This reduction, while limited in scope, was enough to ease tensions and demonstrate that dialogue could yield tangible results. The reduction incentivized China to cooperate on fentanyl, while giving Trump a win to tout at home. Both leaders could point to the agreement as evidence of their ability to defend national interests while making progress on shared concerns. For China, even a modest tariff cut was a positive sign that negotiation could yield results. It offered hope to exporters and signaled to the world that China remained open to dialogue and compromise. The targeted approach allowed both sides to claim progress without appearing to back down. It was a delicate balancing act, but one that preserved face and set the stage for further talks. This compromise became the cornerstone of the truce, signaling a move from escalation to negotiation. It marked a turning point, showing that both sides could find common ground even amid deep disagreements. It offered hope for future reductions if the truce held, and encouraged businesses on both sides to plan for a more stable trading environment. Both nations framed the deal as a cooperative step on a shared problem, emphasizing partnership over rivalry and highlighting the benefits of pragmatic engagement. The agreement marked a crucial step away from the brink of economic war, opening the door to further dialogue and raising hopes for a more constructive future between the world's two largest economies. China's dominance over rare earth minerals gives it powerful leverage in trade disputes. These materials are vital for everything from smartphones to defense systems, and China controls most of the global supply. In response to U.S. tech restrictions, China had threatened to limit rare earth exports, alarming industries worldwide. As part of the Busan truce, China agreed to suspend its new export controls for 1 year, issuing general licenses for U.S.-bound shipments. This move neutralized a major threat to U.S. tech and defense sectors, ensuring continued access to critical materials. The White House hailed it as a major win, and the pause provided breathing room for U.S. industries. For China, it was a gesture of de-escalation, showing willingness to compromise. The agreement stabilized supply chains and reassured global markets. Both sides put their most powerful economic weapons on hold, prioritizing negotiation over retaliation. The rare earth pause became a key pillar of the fragile truce. It bought time for both nations to seek longer-term solutions. The U.S.'s strongest leverage is its control over advanced technology, especially semiconductors. The Commerce Department's Entity List blacklists Chinese firms from buying U.S. tech, crippling key industries. The Trump administration had planned to expand this blacklist, potentially targeting thousands more Chinese companies. This looming expansion was a major concern for Beijing and a flashpoint in negotiations. As a concession, the U.S. agreed to pause the entity list expansion for 1 year, giving China's tech sector temporary relief. This prevented an immediate escalation of the tech Cold War and stabilized the industry. The pause was a classic quid pro quo. China suspended rare earth controls. The U.S. paused tech restrictions. The underlying tech rivalry remains, but the truce created a much-needed ceasefire. Both sides gained predictability and breathing room for their companies. The agreement offered a reprieve for global supply chains caught in the crossfire. It set the stage for further talks on technology competition. American farmers were among the hardest hit by the trade war, losing China as their top export market. The Busan truce included a major Chinese commitment, immediate purchase of at least 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans, plus a pledge to buy 25 million tons annually through 2028. This lifeline arrived just in time for harvest, stabilizing prices and offering hope to struggling farmers. China also agreed to resume buying other U.S. agricultural goods, spreading the benefits across the sector. For Trump, it was a political and economic victory he could showcase to his base. For farmers, it meant renewed demand and a path to recovery. The deal symbolized a return to normalcy for America's heartland. De-escalation required both sides to step back. China agreed to suspend all retaliatory tariffs and non-tariff measures imposed since March 2025, providing immediate relief to U.S. exporters. This move reopened the Chinese market to American goods like chicken, wheat, corn, and beef. China also paused its unreliable entity and end-user lists, reducing barriers for U.S. companies. The suspension signaled a broader intent to reduce friction and restore normal trade. For U.S. businesses, it meant real-world economic relief and renewed access to a critical market. Beyond trade, the U.S.-China talks tackled the deadly fentanyl crisis. China committed to intensify its crackdown on fentanyl production and trafficking in exchange for U.S. tariff relief on related chemicals. The agreement marked a shift toward cooperation on a shared public health threat. Success will be measured in lives saved, not dollars. The deal created a new framework for joint action on a crisis devastating American communities. The Busan truce brought temporary relief to the global economy, averting a catastrophic escalation. Businesses gained stability, and consumers were spared from soaring prices. Both Trump and Xi could claim victories, but the underlying conflicts remain unresolved. The truce is a pause, not a peace treaty. Deep disagreements over technology, Taiwan, and trade rules persist. The next year will test whether both sides honor their commitments. The fragile peace offers a chance to rebuild trust, but the future is uncertain. The world will watch closely to see if this window leads to lasting solutions. The fate of global order may hinge on whether this fragile truce can hold.